The MP5 is an incredible full auto gun. At a recent industry day, there was a guy there who said he wanted to shoot his first full auto gun that day, and I said, look, forget about all the things you think you want to shoot and go over to the booth that has the full auto MP5 and you can thank me afterwards. And yet, despite that, the gun has its share of haters. And if I'm being honest, there was a time when I didn't really get it. I thought it was cool, but I don't really get it. Because you see, the MP5 does have a unique manual of arms. And that's why some people criticize it. And yet, for those of you that know, you know the best part of the MP5 is the HK slap universally brings joy to the face of everyone who does it. There's also a lesser seen variant of the MP5 that brings joy to those who experience it. The SD.
I think we need to do another one. That was so cool.
All right, kids, welcome back to part 2 of the HK series here.
Part 2.
We've got
an iconic MP5 SD.
SD in both burst and full auto. So we've got 4 trigger settings. It is absolutely magical. Magical.
And it's 2-round burst, not 3.
Yeah. And we've had another 3-round burst gun out here today.
Yeah.
These videos, of course, we should remind you, are not reviews. They are more of historical, it's a peek behind the curtain, if you will.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It is a, hey, let's kind of bring you some stuff that you don't see or hear about very often. When it comes to MP5 reloads, you see them all the time, and I think this is kind of what we're going to talk about, is you don't necessarily understand the why behind it. So we'll get to that momentarily. Let's thank a couple folks for the support.
US
here.
Brass House for all the ammo. 2 codes, 1911, enter, Syndicate, enter, $40 off a case of ammo. We got Shooting Surplus. 1911 Syndicate will get you 5% off the whole website. The whole website.
Juicy.
Whole website.
Okay. That's juicy.
Everything.
Whole website.
The whole kit.
That's $5 for every 100.
Yeah.
Is that the math?
Just to illustrate. I'm just trying to help.
1, 10. So yeah, it'd
you
be
carry
like
the wine and then it's
$150. Good job on that earlier.
Money.
Dang.
Yeah. So
Dang.
anyway, so we
Anyways.
got that. So anyway, thanks US Press House, Shooting Surplus. James back from Teufelshund Tactical. He will be on the channel quite a bit over the next couple months. So get used to seeing that handsome face. And now that we've made you thoroughly uncomfortable, could you please talk to us about the reloads of MP5?
Sure. You know, we were discussing as we thought about what did you guys want to get out of this series, and showing something different. And I think when it comes to the MP5, you definitely have some differing camps. You know, on one side, you've got the real proponents that I fall firmly in that category. And on the other side, you've got the true naysayers. And, you know, taking the conversation out of, you know, the role of a subgun today versus an AR, we're not talking about that. You understand it's a niche weapon, it's got a specific role, and in that area, it is very effective. I want to take that subject out, and let's look at one of the other divisive things that you get from people, and usually ones that don't have experience, and that comes down to the unique manual of arms that you have to work through on an MP5 because it's based off of a G3 and really all of the other roller delayed guns except for, and we won't talk about this here, but the MP5, 10, and 40, they come from a time period when before the bolt hold open device became the industry standard that it is today. So without that bolt hold device that most people are so familiar to running an AR, it means you actually have to manually cycle the bolt back to the rear, and that's just different. And for some people,
you're an AK guy.
Yeah, if you're an AK guy, maybe it's different. Some people, that is just too far a bridge to cross. And for me, maybe it's because I've been running these guns for so long, or it's the Marine officer in me that, you know, I've learned to adapt, improvise, and overcome, that learning a new technique isn't something that's difficult for me. So in that vein, what we thought we would do was give you a little bit of the history or the deep dive into functionally how the gun was designed to operate. And then give you a couple of different techniques on how you can run your magazine reload, and then let you make a decision on which one you want to try the next time you go out to the range.
Cool. And not only that, but as we go throughout this series, different setups on different SP5s and MP5s, the manual of arms may change because there's lights in the way on this side, right? So
always adaptable.
Always adaptable. So yeah, that's one of the biggest like gripes about it. And it's like,
once you get past that, and again, we're going to do this in a matter of minutes, and you got, I got it.
Yeah.
Now I can run this thing like a pro, and because you guys are pros too, and you understand how to do that. So let's dive right into that.
Yeah.
I don't know about pro.
Yeah. I've been impressed. I've been impressed. So
we'll run it dry and then.
Well, I think you want to discuss a little.
Yeah,
from
let's talk about a little bit from the mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
Again, because the weapons come from a time period before the bolt holding device, they were actually meant to be loaded or reloaded with the bolt lock back to the rear. Okay, and of course you'll have people that say, I want to load it with bolt forward. We'll get to that. But the whole idea behind it is in relation to the bolt itself and the magazine, okay? And where the magazine has to insert, how high it has to go to lock in relation to where that bolt is. So if you take a look at an MP5 bolt, which I just happen to have here in my hand, you'll notice you've got the top of the bolt, you got the front where the actual cartridge case fits and is held by the extractor. But on the bottom of the bolt, you'll notice this portion that sticks out lower than the rest. This is called the feed pawl, okay? And you see that on other automatic weapons. You'll see it on your handguns. Below the breech face, you'll see the feed pawl stick down. In relation to the magazines, what you'll notice is you have feed lips on either side, and then you'll notice there's a cutout section lower than the rest. When the bolt is back to the rear, that's where the bolt is. As the bolt goes forward, that feed pawl sits lower than the top of the feed lips so that it can strip the back of that cartridge, pushing it up the feed ramp and into the chamber. If that's the case, and I have the bolt forward, and this feed pawl sticks down lower than the feed lips, then there has to be some certain amount of spring travel left in the magazine
to allow that to happen.
To allow you to get it high enough up to lock with the bolt forward.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a lot of discussion about that. You'll have guys debate and say, well, I can get it locked, if I hit it really hard or slap it in this direction, 2 or 3 times. But for me, and
there's
the way
a gamble with
it's,
that.
It's a gamble.
It's a gamble, though.
It's a gamble. I approach my tactics, techniques, and procedures that I provide in training based off of like worst case scenario.
Okay.
If what you're doing is kind of like what we're doing, just a couple of guys out in the desert having fun shooting H&Ks, it doesn't really matter what you do. And if you're in competition and flubbing up a reload means you go from 1st to 3rd place, you still get to go home at the end of the day. But if you're depending on your life, I want a technique in this case for magazine reloads that works first time, every time.
All the time, no matter what.
Over probability.
Yeah.
So I don't want the probability that if I leave my bolt forward and I hit it the 2nd or 3rd time, it's going to seat. I want to make sure it's going to seat first time every time. And if you understand this, then you understand the only way to get certainty over probability is to load with the bolt back to the rear. Now, of course, I'm sure the guys are already firing up the comment section. They'll say, well, I would just download my magazine, James, by a couple of rounds like I do with my AR-15, and then I get around that issue. And I would say, you're exactly right. You can totally do that. But if that's the technique that you adopt to do a bolt forward reload, then you're now also adopting that every time you load this gun, it's got to have a downloaded magazine. And I don't want to have all the challenges going that. I mean, we've been loading a bunch of mags today.
Sure.
Are we counting to 30 every time, or are we sitting here telling stories and
jamming it until it feels full, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to have to deal with that. If I'm running in a team and I run out of ammo and I got to yell in the middle of a firefight for another magazine, do I want to, hey, I need a mag. Is this 30 or 28? Because I need to know whether I need to load the bolt back to the rear or forward. Like, I don't want to do all that.
Yeah.
Of course, you want to argue that. Again, the simple answer is if you load it with the bolt back to the rear, it doesn't matter if it's downloaded or fully loaded, it's going to seat first time every time.
Cool.
So let's show some techniques on how to run it. And just because I want to make sure I take care of those guys that will say, James, I heard what you said, but I just have to download my mags.
Yeah.
The first technique we're going to showcase, we're going to do what we call the AK reload, because it simulates that. It is a bolt forward reload that requires you, again, certainty over probability, to download your mags. You might be able to get it to seat with the bolt forward, but you might not.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Chris, you want to run this one first?
Yeah, I'll do this one.
Okay, so to set this drill up, you have to understand that my training philosophy, and one of the things I've done, and it goes back to my military background, is whenever I'm teaching a new technique or a technique that has a series of steps that you have to get correct in that sequence or it doesn't work right, I like to use what we call a ditty. Okay, a ditty is just a tune, a saying, a group of words that you're going to say out loud. Okay. And the reason is, if you're learning a new technique, if you tell your brain what to do, you're more likely going to be able to do it. If you don't say it, if you don't tell your brain what to do, your brain is most likely going to be off wandering around and it's going to fall back to what you're comfortable with. And that may be an AR reload that won't work with an MP5. So in this case, the ditty that we're going to use in this bolt forward reload or AK reload is going to be off.
So strip the mag.
Yep.
Okay.
On.
Insert mag.
Yep. And then rack. You're going to rack the charging handle forward. Okay. You ready to show it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we got Chris set up with MP5 SD. He's going to go ahead and put the bolt forward because he's going to do a bolt forward reload. We're going to run this dry once just so you get a feel for it, and then we'll run it live. So I'm giving him an empty magazine. He's going to load that in, and then I'm going to give him another empty magazine. He's going to put this in his speed reload source, which in this case
we're going to
is
throw
his
it in a pocket for right now.
Pocket works. It's always there.
Dude,
you know?
Always wearing pockets, man.
Yep, there you go.
Unless we're in the buff, but that's a different story.
Yeah. So now we're going to run this, and I'm going to talk through it cold, okay? So on the command gun, Chris is going to present the weapon up, sweeping the safety off into full auto position, and he's going to begin firing. Okay. He's going to fire until the gun runs out of ammo. He's going to know that because the weapon is going to tell him that, because it's going to hear a click instead of a bang of the hammer falling empty chamber. At that point, he's going to bring the weapon into his workspace, and he's going to bring his hand from the handguard down to the back of the magazine with his thumb on the paddle mag release the magazine and discard it, sounding off with the ditty of off. Okay. Okay, go ahead and do that.
Okay. So we come up, click instead of bang. Yep. Well, we need to sweep it to full auto first, right? Click, bring the gun up to my workspace. Off.
Okay, now he's going to ditch that mag. It's no longer good for him. The next step, he's going to grab his speed reload source mag, rotate it up, and insert it until it seats securely into the weapon, with sounding off with the ditty of on. Okay. Once it's seated, and even that, you saw how difficult it was to get it to seat, even though it was empty with the bolt forward. And then the last step of this is, as he brings his hand up, he's going to now form a high five position, like he's going to high five himself. And in one fast motion, he's going to grab the charging handle, rack it back to the rear, and release it with the ditty rack.
Rack.
And then present the weapon back up and engage the target again. Okay. So again, the ditty, or the whole drill, is off, on, rack.
Okay. Question. So you would have to, doing the high five, I'm a left-handed shooter, for those of you who don't know, so my sequence is going to be a little different, right? But for a right-handed shooter doing this, you would have to be conscious not to accidentally go back and hook that bolt up.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
Because with a little bit of pressure, you might engage that bolt.
You could, and if what I have experience doing is locking the bolt back to the rear, when I have to demonstrate this drill, it's very difficult, and quite often in my racking motion, all inadvertently, because I'm reverting back to what my muscle memory has told me to do, and then I'm like, crap, now I gotta release it. So it's a thought process thing. And for a lefty, obviously for you, you're not coming from high-fiving back here, you're coming from the other side, hooking over and bringing it back, so a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, and I think really the way to combat accidentally locking it back is, as I'm racking, I'm pulling down this way slightly, and then my hand slides off. You see what I'm saying? So, and then, right?
Exactly.
So, cool.
Okay, so let me have that empty mag. I'm gonna go ahead and let him run this live now. So he's gonna take the first mag, and again, the way we're gonna work this to make sure it runs right is a 30-round mag. I'm gonna take 2 rounds off. Now he's downloaded. Okay. I'm gonna take a speed reload source, and I'm gonna do the same thing, because again, if we're gonna commit to this for certainty over reliability, or certainty over probability, I gotta download my mags.
Cool.
Okay, so again, gun. Okay.
Off. On. Rack. Oh, see?
Yep.
I did it. Yep.
And burst.
And burst. Let's do that again.
Yep. Let's do it again. Gun.
Off. On. Rack.
There you go. So again, if you want to adopt a bolt closed reload technique, you want to run it like an AK because that's what you're comfortable with, and you're happy with downloading your magazines to get that certainty of locking every time, this is a technique for you. Okay, so now we're gonna have Jake come out. He's gonna show you my preferred bolt open reload technique. Okay, so now we've got Jake out here. He's gonna demonstrate my preferred bolt back to the rear reload technique. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and give him an empty mag. He's got the bolt locked back. He's gonna put an empty mag in the gun, charge it, put this one in his speed reload source. Okay, just like before, the drill is gonna start with the command gun. He's gonna present the weapon up, sweeping the safety off, and begin to fire. Okay, he's gonna run the gun until it runs out of ammo. The gun's gonna tell him it's out of ammo because he's gonna hear a click instead of a bang of the hammer falling on an empty chamber, and he's gonna know to bring it in his workspace and begin his reload technique. In this case, the first step of that reload is going to be to take his hand and reach up and pull back on that charging handle and lock it in the position, sounding off with the ditty of back.
Back.
Okay. Next, he's going to rotate his hand back with his thumb on the back of the paddle mag release, releasing the magazine and discarding it with the command off.
Off.
Okay. Then he's going to reach into his speed reload source, rotate that magazine up, seat it firmly with the ditty of on.
On.
And then, because he's a lefty, he's going to come over the top and with a hammer fist, chop down on that charging handle and send it forward. Right. Then he'll be back on target. As a right-handed shooter, I could either come over the top now with the high five facing away from me and chop down and give the traditional HK slap, or if you want to be a little more efficient, or maybe you've got a big optic and a light or something in the way, just come straight from where your thumb was on the back of the paddle mag release and just roll your thumb and roll the charging handle forward. You've got a couple of different, or 3 different techniques you could use for that. Okay, so you ready to run it live?
Oh, I'm ready.
Gun.
Back, off, on, forward.
There you go.
So intuitively, I actually palmed it.
You did.
Yeah, versus grabbing.
You did.
And part of that, may I?
Yeah.
You know, because on some of my personal guns, I have lights over here, so I can't palm it because there's shit over here.
Yep.
I saw you
On
shoot
this,
your
I can.
SP5K earlier,
Yeah.
and because of that light, and because the SP5K has an optic that's closer up here,
Yep.
you were hammer fisting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On this, pretty easy to actually get the high five in.
Yeah. Shows you're adapting to the gun you've got.
Well, people say I'm smart, James.
Yeah. I would say they're right in this case.
Chris, anyone ever said that about you?
All the time.
Yeah.
And ruggedly handsome.
Your mom?
Yeah.
Your mom said that?
Still counts.
Okay.
But if we're going to pick on people, while I pick up these magazines, I can't help but notice, Jake, you must know something that we don't know. I'm out here in this dry desert, but are we expecting a flood with those high water?
Okay, so look, here's what happened. We did a review on these pants, and they sent a size that was a little too short, and it was not my choice, okay? They're great pants, a little short.
Okay, okay. He had
When
an excuse. It's not a valid excuse.
You know what's not gonna happen?
but
I'm not
it's an
gonna trip over them.
excuse.
I've never tripped over them. Yeah. And when I operate, James, I don't want to trip over my pants. I like them short.
Okay, okay. Well, what we're going to show now, after that little interlude, is that this is a great technique, in my opinion, running it fast and efficient with the bolt hold'em device. This is also the technique, this back off on forward technique, that you would run the weapon if you were using H&K's dual mag clamp. If you haven't seen this, you got to go and get it if you got an MP5. It's a metal clamp that, as it would suggest, holds 2 mags together. So obvious benefit on here is now I've got twice the ammo capacity on the gun. So from a standpoint of whether it's a home defense gun or you're actually law enforcement, if all I've got time to do is grab the gun and not put on a plate carrier or chest rig or grab a war belt, at least I know I've got 60 rounds, and that's a lot of problem solving I can do with the gun. The other reason on this is because it's the fastest way to reload the weapon. I don't have to come further away to a pouch. I don't have to fight through Velcro or a bungee or around my sling. I can just pull it off, slide it over, and back on again. So go ahead and remove that one. Pull your bolt back to the rear, and we're going to run the same drill running both mags. Back, off, on, forward. Okay. Gun! Excellent. So as you can see, again, very fast and efficient, reliable way to run the gun with the bolt lock back to the rear. So that's my preferred technique. So let me show you one more technique here and I'll demonstrate this myself. Okay, now let me show you one more slight deviation to the open bolt reload drill. It's gonna run just like before, but now instead of me going immediately to the charging handle and locking it back to the rear first, instead I'm going to remove the magazine first, then come up, lock the bolt back to the rear, then come down, load a mag in, then finish up by charging it forward. And I'll explain the why when we get done. So start it out, load it up, and the ditty for this is going to be off, back, on, forward. Okay, stand by, gun. Off, back, on, forward. Okay. Now I'm sure already you're probably asking me, James, why would I do that? That seems less efficient than before.
Same question I got.
Yep, you had your hand up here, you completely bypassed going to the charging handle to there, and then you had to come back up, then you had to come down there. It just doesn't seem as efficient.
I got maybe why.
Yep.
Is it potentially you felt a malfunction of some sort?
That is exactly why it is a malfunction clearance reason.
Did you get that? No, you didn't.
I didn't have enough time to, I was
Got to be quick on your feet like a panther.
Yeah, you have to be quick.
You have to.
The reason why I like to offer this as another technique is because this is very similar in the manual of arms of off, back, on, forward as what you're going to need to utilize if you have an out of battery malfunction with an MP5 series weapon. Doesn't happen very often, but if you do, it's most likely going to be a result of a double feed, where you've got one round that's still in the chamber that may or may not have been fired, and another round trying to get in there. So we're going to go ahead and simulate how we're going to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to set up the double feed. In this case, I'm going to put the magazine in the weapon, and then I'm going to take another round and drop it down into the chamber and then ease the bolt forward. And this is going to create a double feed where the bolt is actually stripping around off the magazine, but now it can't get in the chamber because the round is still in there.
It's one hole, 2 bullets, right?
Exactly. Not going to fit.
No, rarely does.
No.
Never does.
No. So in this case, the malfunction clearance is going to sound very much like the reload technique I just showcased. The first thing I'm going to want to do is not pull the charging handle back to the rear, but instead I want to clear out another high-speed avenue of egress for this to go out, okay, and let gravity be my friend. Most often what's going to happen is when you remove the magazine is the round that's trying to get into the chamber is just going to fall out as it is, or it might still be stuck kind of nosed up in the feed lips, okay? So that first step of recognizing that it's a malfunction would be to bring it to my workspace and go off. Okay, as I bring the magazine off the weapon, and I'm just going to stow it here in my pocket or in a pouch. Then I would come up and do back. But in this case, instead of just pulling the charging handle back to the rear the first time, there was not enough force for that the bolt going forward after I moved the magazine for it to capture the rim of the cartridge to pull it out on the first time, most likely. So I'm gonna do back in 3 rapid successions of back, 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 okay? And it's usually on the second time you'll see that round come out, then back with on, and then forward. So the ditty is just like the reload technique, off, back, but now it's back, 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 on, forward, and then I could shoot again. The similarity between that last reload technique and the out of battery malfunction clearance technique is something I like to teach new shooters to the platform who are coming without any experience. It gets them really comfortable in running both reloads and malfunction clearances with the same technique. If I show them a different reload technique and then tell them, okay, but now when we go to malfunction clearances, you've got to do something completely different, it really throws them off. Yeah. Once you get comfortable and confident with the gun, then you start working at where can I trim off and make efficiencies here and there, and that's when I would say, okay, now let's go back off on forward. So hopefully what you guys get out of this, and the viewers as well, is there are multiple ways to get to your end goal, and within MP5, what we've really showcased here are 3 different reload techniques that now you as the owner can go out to the range, test for yourself, find out which one allows you to get the maximum potential out of your MP5.
Yeah.
And would you say, just to kind of wrap it up here, like between the reload that I did and Chris did,
I was
who
better.
performed better?
Oh man, you're really going to make me take sides here?
James.
Just think of which one could beat your ass.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
James.
know.
Definitely not him.
You know, I gotta
I know
I gotta say
I know karate.
I gotta say I'm gonna go with the open bolt reload because
I will
it's the
say
right type of reload.
That he was pretty smooth.
Yeah.
You know, he does own an MP5. I don't. So I'll give
and
him
he had the added challenge of doing it as a southpaw.
Lefty.
True.
Come on, y'all.
Also, I have a wife and he doesn't. So he just.
Ooh, big whoop.
Well, that's why you're better at that.
So anyway, with all of that professionalism out of the way, let's take you to some final thoughts.
So there you have it. The MP5 is a gun that every gun enthusiast must own. But the story doesn't stop there. Times change, and we take our HK story from the rock and roll 1960s to the 90s. A time of MC Hammer, denim vests, and Saved by the Bell. A time when HK began development on some other iconic submachine guns. So buckle up, kids, because next week, we're taking it up a notch.